was that once the animal is being led, the Bezdin handed down its verdict. The animal has to be stoned, has to be put down, and the animal now is being led to the stoning. So if the man then decides to make the animal hegdish or make it hefker, it's no longer in his control. And we did learn there's an argument between Rashi and Rabbeinu Tam as to Pshat. According to Rashi, the animal is already forbidden to have any pleasure, so how can you make it hegdish? It's not yours anymore. According to Rabbeinu Tam, the Sher Haniskul, you can have Hana till you actually kill it. But the reason why you cannot make it hegdish is because it's like a takana. We don't want you to delay the sentence of Bezdin. So therefore, you cannot go ahead and make it and consecrate or do anything with it. So we're up to the Gemara here, the very bottom of the page, Mavdal page. Ton Rabban, we learned in the Braisa. Shoyd Shehemis, the animal killed a human, a person. Ad Shalenig Medina Kolzman, the Bezdin didn't yet give down the final sentence. Okay, so we don't know if the animal yet is going to be treated as an animal that committed a crime. So then it's still yours. Machre, if you sold it, the animal is sold, and you can sell it for as Rashi says, even to agriculture. And mukdish, if you make it hegdish, it's a valid hegdish. Hegdish mukdish is hegdish is valid. Shachli shecht, sorry, muti allowed to eat the flesh because at the moment the animal has not yet been handed down that final sentence. Hechaziru shemer lebeis bailam, if the shemer who is watching it before Bezdin hands down the final verdict gives it back to the owner, muchsa says he said, look, I gave you back your animal. You gave me an animal, I gave it back. I the animal gored in between, and Bezdin's about to kill the animal, but Bezdin hasn't yet handed down their sentence, so he can give it back. 5 minutes later, the Bezdin is going to come to the balabas and take the animal away and sentence it to be killed. That doesn't matter. I gave you back a proper animal. Mishenigma dinah. However, all this changes once Bezdin handed down its verdict. If you now turn around and try to sell it, it's not a valid sale anymore because it's not yours to sell. As Rashi says, it's no longer in your reshus to sell because now Bezdin handed down the psak that has to be stoned. So it's not because you're delaying it, but because it's not yours to be sold. Because also bahana. There is a whole discussion we talked about once whether Isser Hana means that it's no longer yours or it's still mine, but I can't do anything with it. And it revolves around the question when ownership. What does ownership mean? What does it mean I own something? I make a kinyan and becomes mine. There's two ways of viewing it. One way is called hishtamshus. I have exclusive rights to use this item and no one else can. That's my relationship with this object. The other review is something much more metaphysical here, that I own the object. Not only have the right to use it, it's mine. And the difference is if it's, for example, it's asa bahana, chametz on Pesach. If there's no longer I can have any pleasure from it, is it still mine? If you learn that my relationship with the thing is because I have exclusive use, if I cannot use it with what is it mine, then it's like hefka, it's no longer mine. And in fact, if somebody comes along and steals it, it's not really a ganef because it's no longer mine, as the Ran and the Rajba argue there in the Dur and Pei. But if you learn that my ownership is I own the item itself, then even if I cannot have any benefit from it, it's still mine. Rashi in Psachim Avava Mebei says that chametz is not b'shusay, and he adds eina shaloi. So it's clear there from Rashi that he holds that isana means not yours at all. Here Rashi uses the words eina mukdash. He says the lav b'shusay, the mare, as if to say it's not in your control. It doesn't say it's not yours, it's not in your control. So others want to learn from Rashi here the opposite. It's an interesting discussion. But anyway, because it's not in your control, you can no longer sell it. Hegdesh, well, you make a hegdesh, it's not a valid hegdesh. Shachap sorry, also if you shechted it, it's forbidden because asabana. And this time, if you give it back to the owner, say, here, take your animal. I gave nothing back because now that the animal is asabahana, I did not, I didn't give him back his animal. However, Rabbi Yaakov says, even after the final verdict of Bezin, if the shamer gave it back to the owner, it's mostly gave it back to him. So l'cheda, it's like a discussion we have if somebody steals, let's say somebody's whiskey, Pesach, and after Pesach he gives it back to whiskey. Can he say, look, I returned what I stole? Or he say, or the other guy can say, hey, when you stole it was worth $100 a bottle, and now it's after Pesach, it's chametz that went through Pesach, it's worthless. The bottle looks the same, the mashka looks the same, but it has zero value. What's the din then? And they want to say that it has to do with how we understand Isser Hana. If Isser Hana means that it's no longer the guy, so what are you giving back to him something that's not, it's It's not his. So therefore, and you give back no value. You have to reimburse him for something else. You cannot give him back the same bottle of whiskey because it has no value and it's not his. But if you learn that Isa means it still belongs to the guy, and I'm giving it back to you, I can say, this was yours. It never left you. It was always yours. I now it has no value, but it's still yours. So goodbye. So maybe that's the argument here regarding the Shem returning the animals. Let us say, but that's the argument. You cannot say when it comes to something which is asabano, here, take it back, it's yours. Why? Because once it's asabano, it's no longer his. It's gone. So now you have to give him back something. What are you giving back to him? Something of value. Equal value. Rabbi Yaakov holds, even though it's asabano, it never left their guy's ownership because he still owned it, and therefore I can give it back to him. So the Shem can give it back to the animal. Amar Rabba says Rabba no. Kuli Alma could be everyone holds everyone holds when it comes to chametz and pesach, for example, you can give it back to the bottle of whiskey because it belongs to him and say, hey, take back your bottle. By Shemi, there's a different argument. Because you can otherwise nifleg in your chametz and pesach. Why argue in the case of a shemer? Argue in the classical case of chametz and pesach, and I return it to you after pesach. Is it a valid returning or not? Why argue in the case of a shemer? Because a shemer is different than chametz and pesach, and the difference is as follows. Because by chametz and pesach, whatever problem arose on its own. I didn't do anything wrong. The chametz after pesach became asa b'hana. Did I do anything for that? No, that's what the din of pesach is. But over here by the shemer, because over here I was neglectful, and not only that, over here by the shemer, afterwards, I brought this animal to Bezin in order to be tried. So I was culpable of I'm a party to the Bezin of that final verdict of destroying the animal. So therefore, in this case here, everyone agrees. I cannot turn around to the owner and say, hey, here, take back your thing, because it's no longer the same. I the one who caused the damage here because I brought it to Bezin. So therefore, just in a nutshell here, what we're up to so far. So we're saying over here is that if a shemer, we said before the Bezdin, I'm just going to quick recap here, that before the Bezdin gave the final sentence that this animal should be stoned, the owner of the animal can sell it, make it hektish, because the animal's still his. The moment the Bezdin hands down the final verdict that the animal should be stoned, it becomes asur b'hana. You cannot sell it, you cannot consecrate it. And then it says, we have an argument, what about the shemer? The shemer is the one who's guarding the animal, and the Bezdin handed down the verdict, the animal should be stoned. Can the shemer return it to the owner? So we say before Bezdin handed down the verdict, yes, he can give it to the owner, your animal. 5 minutes later, the Bezdin takes it away and decides to kill the animal. That's your problem. But I gave you back the same animal you gave me. But if after the Bezdin's verdict, so the Chachamim say, if you give it back, you gave back an animal that's worthless. So you didn't. The shemer has to reimburse the owner of the animal. But Rabbi Yaakov says no. You can give the animal back. You can say Hadei shel chalafanecha. This is the animal I took. It's still here. So then the Gemara says, what's the crux of the argument? Is it to do with whether Isser Hana you can return back if you stole chametz from somebody before Pesach and you returned him after Pesach? Now it's worthless because it's chametz that went through a Pesach. Can I say, hey, Hadei shel chalafanecha? And we explained before what the crux of that argument is, whether Isa no is still considered yours or not. If it's yours, I'm giving back your item. If it's not, not. So that's the same argument by the Shem if you return the animal. And we answer no, that we say it has nothing to do with that. By Chametz and Pesach, it became a problem on its own. I didn't do anything to ruin it. Pesach comes along and makes it usher. So therefore, one opinion says, I can return it to here. The same thing that I stole, I didn't make any changes. The changes that occurred happened by itself. I didn't do anything. Take it back. When it comes here to the animal, definitely I'm the one who ruined it because I had to take it to Bezin. Bezin doesn't come to my house to seize the animal. I take the animal to Bezin. So the shemer is a party to the damage to the animal. So therefore, in this case, everyone agrees the shemer can't turn around to the owner and say, hey, you're the one who destroyed my animal. So what's the argument then if you can return the thing? So we're up to the Gemara here. You know what they're arguing about? Could the Bezin have continued? You know that when a person in absentia, when it comes to a normal din Torah, but people, you cannot have a din Torah without the defendant there. The defendant has to be there. What about when it comes to an animal? Does the animal owner also have to be present in court, or when we're sentencing this animal, or not? And that's the argument here. So over here, hey, in the middle of the page on Maral, that's what the argument is. Rabbanan Sabri ain't going in dinner shall show it. Rabbanan say that you cannot continue with a court case unless the guy himself is there. The Amalei, so the owner says, look, he said, the owner says to the guy, you can't give me back the animal after the court case, because you know what? If you would have given me the animal back right before the court thing, they cannot continue with this sentence unless the animal's in everything else. I would have taken the animal before and brought it to a swamp somewhere, and the no, court case wouldn't have continued. And because they cannot have the court case without the animal present and be present. You now took my animal and you put it in the hands of the Yechil. I can't defend myself. At least if you would have given it to me, I had a way out. And even though we learned before in places that it's the wrong thing to do, but I could have done it. I could have escaped. Oh, but now that so therefore you are culpable here. You cannot turn around to me and say, hey, take the animal back. Nothing changed. Yes, it did change. You'd have given me back to me before the court case or before the final verdict. I could have done something. But Rabbi Yaakov holds, Yaakov says it makes no difference if the animal's present, makes no difference at all. We would have continued the court case anyway. So it would have made no difference if the Shem would have given back to you before or now. And therefore the Shem can say, here's your animal. Anyway, we would have completed the din without you around. And therefore, it's like a damage that happens automatically. The Shema did not contribute at all to this damage because Bezdin would have proceeded with the court case regardless. So therefore, the Shema has the right to say, no different than Chametz and Pesach, where the damage happened by itself. Because the court doesn't need, even if you would have ran away, the court would have continued with the court case itself. My time is the Rabbanan. What's this for the Rabbanan? Why do the Rabbanan hold that we need, the owner present or that, and we need the animal? Because it says the pasuk Hashor Yisrakel, the Gambail of Yimus. It says that the Shoyer you should stone, and the owner should be put to death. Now we know the owner of the animal does not get put to death. So why does the Torah say he gets put to death? To equate the halachas, the way we treat the Shoyer in the court is the same way we would treat had a person killed another person. And we learn a number of dinim of that. And one of the dinim that Rabbanan want to learn is that kimis is a bailim, just like by when you can't try someone in absentia. You need the person to be present. The shirt also has to be present. And therefore, the shirt if the owner would have taken the shirt and ran away to some swamp, court could not have proceeded with the case. So by the shomer presenting the animal to the bezin, the shomer proactively caused damage to this animal. So you can no longer turn around and say, "Oh, here's your animal." But Rabbi Yaakov, so what's Rabbi Yaakov going to say? No, Taka, everyone agrees that we equate the laws of a person killing to the laws of an animal killing. So how come Yaakov says the bezin could have proceeded without the show being there? But if the owner would have been charged with murder, he would have to be present. So Yaakov says, no, here there's a logic to say there's a difference. We need the bailim in court. The bailim could defend themselves, and therefore you cannot have a fair trial unless the defendant is there and they can give us an excuse or explain to us what happened or whatever. Elishoy, what's the point of having a show the Bartan? We have two witnesses. The show killed someone. What do you show? Who? The show can defend himself. Therefore, if the show is not there, it makes no difference as Abiyaktiv in this case, and that's why the Shema did not contribute anything by bringing the show to court. Okay, we're up to the two dots. If the guy gave it over to a Shema Chinim or a Shoyol, and we said that even though we learned that if you change ownership, sometimes you recalibrate. We had an argument, Rishus Mishan, if I sell you an animal that's been an established mu'ud. So some say that the new person now started all over again as a tam because the owner might be different and then we start all over again. But when it comes to a shomer, we say it's not considered you're changing ownership because even while it's sitting in the hands of the borrower, whose animal is it? It's still the owner's animal. So it never changed ownership. So whatever status the animal has, while it was in the owner's domain, has the exact same status while it's sitting by the shomer. So, for example, by the owner it was a mu'ud, and then it's now sitting by the shomer, and then the shomer was lax and the animal went out and caused damage. We'll treat it like a mu'ud, and the shomer has to pay the full damage. If it was a tam by the owner, then it's still a tam by the shomer as well.
In the case of the gun, the shomer ends up being the gun by him saying, "I want to steal."
Oh, then he becomes an owner. Yeah. So if the shamer then lies in court and everything else, and he becomes a ganav, then he's like he has kinyanim in it. We'll learn later in Bava Kama that a ganav, in order to become a ganav, you have to make a kinyan. It's not just enough. I want to steal. Talk about we learned. Abba nichnasu tachas abayil in the following four shemim stand in the shoes of the owner. They go, hey, these are the shemer chinim, a guy who's a shemer for as a favor, so he's responsible for nothing except if he does pshi, unless he's negligent. And and as an argument, if negligence is that a din in shemer, or is that because he's like a mazik, he himself destroyed the animal by being negligent? Hashoy labaro is responsible for everything, including accidents. Only one or two exceptions, and which is mesa machas malacha. If I borrowed something to work, can it die during the work? But that's what I borrowed it for, so then I'm exempt. Or if the owner of the animal is working for me, and noisei socher, somebody who gets paid, where he's responsible for, at least for stolen, if it's stolen or lost, and hasocher, or a renter. And a renter, we have an argument whether he has the mayor says he has the same status as a shomer chinam. He's doing a favor, but he's actually paying money, so even better. And he's only responsible for pshiv negligence, or is he like Yeshem Sacher that he's also responsible for steal or stolen avoidance? Now, this is what the Brisa says. Hargu Tamin, if let's say while they were a tam, they killed the nedrog, and the animal still gets put down, but a pshuv not kaifer, because it's like a tam. A tam, the first 3 times it kills a person, does not pay kaifer. Mu'adin, if the animal was already a mu'ad by the owner and now the shamer took over and it killed a person, neheragin will kill the animal, but a mashalman is a kaifer, you pay kaifer. But even though the shamer is the first time by the shamer, but he's an extension of the balabas, and therefore the animal has the same status. Says the Gemara, the chayav l'harze demei shor the balabas, but the shamer now has to reimburse the owner because it was his responsibility. The animal committed the damage there, so he pays. He has to pay what do you call it for the damage that the animal incurs, and then he has to also pay back. For example, if the animal got stoned and the animal's dead, he owes now the shoyl. He owes now 2 fronts. He also has to give back to the mashal, to the lender, his animal, but he can't because it's dead. So he pays him money. Says the Gemara. The only exception is the shem mechinim. Hashem Chinin does not have to pay back the money. Says the Gemara, or the Kaifas, we'll see. So Gemara, hey, what are we talking about? There's different levels of shmira. We'll see. We talked about before. We'll learn too soon in the Mishnah. There's called a shmira b'chusa. Shmira b'chusa means a weak shmira. Even though it's called a weak shmira, it means a normal shmira, a normal fence, and then under normal circumstances, animals don't break through. That's called a normal shmira. We call that shmira b'chusa. Then we have a thing called a shmira ma'ula, a much better shmira, very strong fence that even a hurricane couldn't destroy that fence. That's called a shmira ma'ula. And we'll have a machlek in the Mishnah later that if you did a shmira b'chusa, you had a normal fence and then animal breaks out and causes damage. Is that called an oinus or not? Rameh will say no. You need a shmira ma'ula and everything. And if you did a shmira b'chusa and it breaks through, you're responsible. So if the animal broke through the fence and causes damage, you are responsible, regardless tam mu'id. Rabbi Yehuda says it depends. And this is the hard one. Rabbi Yehuda says, if the animal is a tam, you need a shmira ma'ula. You need a very good shmira, and therefore, if it broke through the fence, you're responsible. But if the animal is a mu'id, you're exempt. A shmira b'chus is good enough, which we discussed is hard to understand in logic, but will bring psukim. And then you have Rabbi Lezer says, I don't care if it's a shmira b'chus. Even if you have a best shmira in the world, if the animal breaks through and causes damage, you're always responsible. The only way to control your animal, he says, with a knife. Kill it. Shecht it. In other words, you're always responsible for your animals. That's Rabbi Lezer. Says the Gemara, let's understand this price. Not today. If you had unbelievable, the higher class grade of shmira, then I feel cool now with it. Why tell me Shem Bechinim is exempt? Then everyone is exempt. They had a shmira ma'ula. It's fantastic. And even according to the mayor, you're exempt. The either line not today. If you didn't watch a shmira ma'ula, but what you only had a shmira plus an avid shmira, then according to the mayor, you're chayiv and everything. And according to Rabbi Yehuda, the tam is chayiv and everything. Then I feel Shem Bechinim no, the chayiv. Then why Shem Bechinim is exempt? If the shmira b'chus an average shmira and the animal broke through and caused damage, you should be paying, even if you're a shem mechinim. Amri, we said hachamay skinim. We're talking about it here. The not today shmira b'chusa, but not shmira mula. You had a shmira b'chusa and not a shmira mula. In other words, you had a normal fence that withstand normal winds, but not withstand a hurricane. So why should a shem mechinim be exempt? Shem mechinim kol shalei shmirasei. That's enough. You fulfilled the obligations. You remember, you're doing me a favor. If I have a normal fence, that's good enough. You can't call me negligent. You can't say I'm a pesheya. If I had a normal fence and a lock and key and the animal broke through, you can't say that I was negligent. I didn't have the best shmir, but I had an average shmir. So therefore, I don't have to. I do need to pay for the damage the animal did, but I don't have to reimburse the mashal because I can say the only time a shem mechinim has to pay back to the lender, to the person who gave the animal to watch, the owner, is if he was negligent. You cannot call him negligent if he had a normal fence there. So why should the Shem Mechinim pay? All other Shem Mechinim have to pay because they're also responsible for Gneva. Aveda is not negligence. Gneva definitely is not negligence in a way because somebody came and broke in. What can you do? And therefore, in this case also, you had a normal fence. It's not good enough. You should have been a bit more careful. And they have to pay. But a Shem Mechinim is only paying for negligence. An average shmira is not negligent. On the other hand, when it comes to hazeka, he has to pay. So we say Shem Mechinim is potter, meaning potter from paying back to the owner of the animal. All the other shemim, the culture shmira, so they haven't satisfied their shmira because they had to be more careful. That Shemasacha is responsible for theft, which means an ordinary shmira is not good enough. The ordinary shmira is good enough. No, for theft we hold you more responsible. So they were the same thing here over here is as well. The animal go out because of damage, and we now have to stone the animal. Then he has to reimburse the owner. Says he, "But Amri Kaman, who says what you're saying right now? We're talking about a shmira b'chusa, and all the animals have to pay, and the shemachinim is exempt from paying. Who are we talking about? Iker Meir holds that shmira b'chusa, Meir holds shmira b'chusa is never good. Amar says that's what's the problem with Meir? Meir is very good. Meir says that shmira b'chusa is not good enough, and you're responsible. That's saying you're responsible as well. The problem with Meir is another discussion. Where do we fit in a soichet, a guy who actually pays to have this animal there? According to Meir, a soichet has the same status as shemachinim. He's only responsible for negligence. So if you're telling me the logic over here is why the shemachinim doesn't have to pay back the owner because having a normal fence is not negligence, so then it should have said a chutz m'shemachinim and chutz m'soichet. A soichet also does not pay for negligence. So if it's Meir, then why does it only highlight a shemachinim? Ikra Meir Damar says soichet k'shemachinim dami, that is soichet like a shemachinim. Then lisnei chutz m'shemachinim v'hasoichet. So obviously it's not a Meir. Then must be Rabbi Yehuda. Yeah, we'll have later a whole discussion.
It says
No, but once the Braisa brings four names, if the Braisa would not have highlighted the four names, you may be right. But once the Braisa highlights the four different shemim, and then it has chutz, you should have spelled it out. So it must be Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda, and if it's Rabbi Yehuda, the Amor says that's Seichet K'Noisha Sacha. It must be Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda holds that a Seichet is treated like a Noisha Sacha. It's very good. The only exception is Shemachinim. The only one who could argue, look, it wasn't negligent to the Shemachinim because I'm the only one who pays for negligence. I have a normal Shmira, it's good enough. The problem is, but by a Mu'id, remember Rabbi Yehuda holds that by a Mu'id, an average Shmira is good enough. So by a Mu'id, if the animal went out and caused damage, the Shema will be parted from the damage that it caused. Why doesn't it mention that? If it's Rabbi Yehuda, let us say the following: Chutz m'shemachinim, the shemachinim does not have to pay back the owner, and then it should have said the kulon b'muadin pturin. That way, if it's a muad, it's patel in your kaifer. That what you don't have to pay. That if because Rabbi Yehuda holds is good enough for a muad, a shmira pchusa, an average shmira is good enough. Why are they paying kaifer? So who's author of Mishnah? This is the third opinion of Abelezer that says ein l'shmira l'sakin. No matter what kind of shmira you made for the animal, you're always responsible. Even if you had a fence that can withstand a hurricane, you're responsible. Only a knife, putting the animal down, is the only way. When it comes to Seicher, when it comes to Seicher, he holds like Rabbi Yehuda, where it says, Seicher k'noisa sacha dami. But why does it say only chutz m'shemachinim? Because when it comes to a Seicher, he holds like Rabbi Yehuda that a Seicher has the same halacha like a noisa sacha. In other words, a Seicher is responsible for theft, and therefore a Seicher has to reimburse the owner of the animal if the animal went and caused damage and the bezin decided the animal has to be stoned. If the animal killed a person and the bezin says, well, you have to stone the animal, so he's responsible. Oh, because the Shekhinah only pays for negligence. And you cannot, even according to him, you cannot call this negligence. As far vis-a-vis, not so much for the damage, vis-a-vis the owner. That's right. So no, we said there's two parts here. The animal caused damage to others, and the shaman has to pay that. And then but the animal is going to be stoned now because it killed a person. So now the shaman has to reimburse the owner of the animal. So as far as Hezek is concerned, I don't care what kind of shaman you are. You have to pay, because Abelazar says only a sakin. As far as paying back the owner, the shaman chinim is potter because he only is responsible if it was negligent. You cannot, even if Abelazar this can't call this negligent. So therefore, the Shema Chinim doesn't have to pay back the owner of the animal because he had a normal fence, and as far as the Shema is concerned, that is good enough. Says Gemara, Abaye says, nope, easier to learn. Why learn like our Belezer, who's a Das Yachid? We'll learn like our Meir. I like a Meir. The only problem we have with a Meir is how come he says exception is Shema Chinim? He should have said exception Shema Chinim and a Seichit. Says he right. What do you mean you're right? Rabbi says that we got it wrong. Rabbi Meir is actually the one who says that a Seichet has the same halacha like a Shema Sacha. And Shema Chinim is unique. And this Braisa follows that view of Rabbi Meir. V'tani Seichet, Kate said, Mishala, Rabbi Meir is the one who says it's Shema Sacha. So the only one that's exempt from all payments except negligence is the Shema Chinim. That's why it says it except Shema Chinim. And Rabbi Meir Shema Chinim. Rabbi says, Mosar Sheire L'Shem Echinam. If Rabbi Elazar says if somebody gave a sheir to a Shem Echinam, he's a chayiv. If the animal went out and caused damage, he is chayiv. You're chayiv. And who's zak? If the animal was damaged by others, potter. Now, what's going on here? We're making now a distinction according to Rabbi Elazar whether the animal went out and did damage to others, then you are liable. But if the animal was damaged by another animal, even though I'm the shamer and I should take care of it, I'm not. What's going on? Either Kabul Allah Shmir as Zakov, if he said, look, I'll take full responsibility of all the damages, I feel losing. If the animal was the recipient of damage, or the animal itself got damaged by others, he should be responsible. If it was negligence. If he did not take responsibility for damages, then I feel he's namely potter. Even then, when I caught out damage, should be potter. So look, I never took. I'm a shaymechinim. I'm doing you a favor. I take no responsibilities. Amar Rabba says Rabba. We're talking about a case. Kibul olav shmina zakah. He took upon himself to. You know what? I will take care of the damages. The hachamaski. You know what we're talking about here? He goes. You knew that this animal is a gorer. This stomach the milsa. So he said, I know the animals are gore, and if he says I'm taking upon myself to damage, what he meant was, I know the animal is wild, but I'll make sure that it doesn't cause any damage. So what am I? It's an unwritten thing, as if I'm saying that I'm to take care of damage others. The charina masculine day, but to I never assumed that other animals will come and damage this animal. Therefore, by askadite, I never accepted that. Mishnah. Now, this is finally the Mishnah, that argument Rabbi Yehuda and Rameya that is so difficult to understand, that Rabbi Yehuda says that a mu'id requires a lesser guarding than a tam. What possible logic is there in that? Let's see the Mishnah. Or it's just like there's a custom. So the Mishnah, the owner went ahead and tied down the animal with reins. In other words, it's not just an ordinary shmirah. This is a top shmirah. The null b'fun of karo, and close the door properly. So what happened was the door is okay. Here he said over here that no b'fan karo means a normal door, a shmira b'chusa. The he yotze went out, the hichzik went out the hichzik and caused damage. Echatam the mutchay Rameir holds. So Rameir holds. So sorry, this is still a shmira b'chusa. Rameir holds that a shmira b'chusa, an average shmira, which is good enough in normal circumstances, and then the animal breaks through, you're still responsible. Tam muad, you are responsible. But if you made a shmira mu'ula, you put it in, as it means that you put it in metal chains, that's something else. Then you would be putter. It's like an accident. Rabbi Yehuda says it depends. Tam, if you only had an average shmira, chayim. But mu'id, if the animal's a wild animal and you had an average shmira, you are putter. Why? Shenemar, it says, the loy yishmerenu baila, that post written by a mu'id. It says if you didn't watch it, as we'll see, the Gemara will explain, how do we learn from there? The shamaruza, and the fact that you did watch it. We'll see later how exactly we learn from there. So by a mu'id, with the pasuk is talking about, you watched it, you had a normal fence, I'm putter. Rabbi Lezer says even a shmira mu'id is useless. Ein lo shmira ela sakin. Even you have a shmira mu'id and the animal breaks through, don't say it's an accident. You are at fault. And the only way to make sure the animal is not going to cause damages, shechted. Says the Gemara, my time with Rameya, what's this for Rameya? Somebody holds stam shvorim lav becheskes shimur kaimer. Now we had before in the Vav an argument if half a knas is mammon or half a knas, if palganisk is mammon or palganisk knas. We had the argument, same wording, but it meant something else. The average animal is domesticated, is docile, or is the average animal, wild? And depending on if you learned average animals wild, really you should have paid the full nezek the first time. It's mammon, but the Torah Rachmanus, you know what? We're going to ameliorate the payments and we're going to drop it down to half. But if you learn that the average animal is not wild, so you had no reason to think that the animal caused damage, so really you put it. It's a knas to make sure you're a bit more careful. You're using the same words, but over here we're not talking about the animal. We're talking about actually the owner. The average owner does not really watch his animal so careful not to cause damage. He assumes the animal will cause damage. So here we're talking about the owner. The Torah said, "Tam nechayim. I'm going to make you pay even the first time. Then I want you to have a shmira for it. You should take responsibility." Then by Mu'ah, the Torah says, "The law yishmer, and if he didn't guard it, gabe mu'id, that means that this guarding that you had for a time is not good enough when it comes to mu'id. We still consider it v'lo yishmerenu. I had a normal fence. No, when it comes to mu'id, v'lo yishmerenu, that's not guarding good enough. You need a better fence than that. You need a shmira mu'ula. then they could withstand a hurricane. Is the leboyle shmina mula, and then once we've established that a muad needs a shmina mula, we learn now the word negicha that says by tam, and the word negicha said by muad. We had yigach to tell you that what that the same dinim that applied to muad applied to tam, which means you need a shmina mula. That's from Meir's opinion. So if you have a shmina mula, a very strong fence, and the animal breaks through, you're nice. Comes along Rabbi Yehuda, and he learns very different. He holds tam shvarim b'cheska shiva kaimu. Generally, people are very careful with their shvarim. Amar Achman Torah says, tam, nishalim, I want you to pay. I probably have already a shmir of chusad. I don't have to tell you because the average person already watches his animals. You already have a normal fence. And the Torah is saying, nope, I'm going to make you pay. Why? Because you need better than that. So what do I want you to have? For tam, I want you to have a shmir mula. And you buy the shmir mula. Then the Torah says, it's not good enough. What can you do better than the shmir mula? What can you do better than that? And forget that Abelazar says kill the animal. What can you do better than that? Gabi muad and navel shmir mula. Another shmir mula. What could be better? Havi ribuy acharibuy. We already know that you have to have a shmir mula by tam, and then the Torah says again by muad you need a shmir mula, better shmir. What's the rule? Ein ribuy acharibuy elo lemaya. Comes to actually reduce. Miyat hakosel shmir mula. When it comes to muad, you know what? That shmir mula that I demanded when it came to tam, you don't need it by muad. So now that we've established by muad a shmira if chus is good enough, let's use the gzeir shava like our mayor and say that tam also shmira chus is good enough. Tam the gichel muad. But Taylor said v'lo yishmerenu. Only regarding this, I'm going to be lenient when it comes to a muad, not when it comes to a tam. Very difficult to understand the logic in it, but haven't really seen anywhere a good logic why when it comes to muad you don't need to shmir as much as it comes to a tam. Says the Gemara, but you're telling me the word v'lo yishmerenu is extra to tell you that's a double extra shmira which comes to reduce. But by lav, you need it for a lav. Now, this is very interesting. Rashi's girsa is you need it for the lav v'lo yishmerenu, and it means to pay. And Taisa says no. Our gear says don't take it. Don't take the word lav out. But you need it for itself that you didn't watch it and you have to pay. So I'll come back to it in a second. You didn't watch my lo yishmeren new. It's extra new. It's limited only to muad. Now I think this is very interesting. I didn't say I won't say this. Our gear, so Rashi gear says you need it for a lav. Whenever it says a lav, it means it's an aved in the Torah. So he says no. To take away the word lav, you need legufa. Tell you have to pay. I told you last time. There's big machlekes showing him. Is there an aveda to cause someone damage? If you break somebody's window, you got to reverse them. Of course. Did you do an aveda? And if it is, what aveda is it? So here it seems that when in our wording the lav, and that's Rashi's girsa, usually it's legufe. Whenever we have a pasuk and we need it for itself, we always use the word legufe. You need it for itself to tell you the outcome, which is you have to pay money. Here we use the word lav to tell you that the reason why you're paying is because you committed an avera, a lav, either because it's an avera or it comes under the banner of like sigzil. It's the lav, and Taisa says there's no lav here. It's just legufe. There's no avera. You're not allowed, if you cause damage, you got to pay. But there's no avera here, which is, I think, interesting. And interesting why nobody talks about it as if maybe that's what Pshat Machlekes is. But anyway, Yaakov says another opinion. Echatam, the echat muad. Shesham l'chizah put the potter. Now we have a fourth opinion. Opinion number 4, and that is Rabbi Yaakov says that if you had a normal on the normal fence, tam muad, your potter, the animal breaks through. It's not your fault. It's an inus. It's not your fault at all. You did what you're supposed to do. My timer. What's his father? So look at Rabbi Yehuda muad because he holds. And his logic is, but he'll go one step further. He agrees. Rabbi Yehuda Damar says muad b'shmir chusasagilek. He agrees. Rabbi Yehuda that word v'leishman tells you that a muad is reduced at one step and a shmir, an average shmir is good enough. But he agrees with Rabbi Meir that will make a gzeir shava now between tam and muad. The yalef negichel tam and negichel muad. He will learn that gzeir shava yigach to tell you that a tam has the same laws of a muad. And therefore, as long as you had a normal fence, you are pater. Now, here's the other thing we learned before, an argument of Adab, and Rav, and here finally we have it. It's interesting, that's the end of the fourth pedic, and we already mentioned so many times before. And that is the following. When Rabbi Yehuda says, what's a muad? Is a muad a tam plus another layer, or is a muad transforms the entire animal? There's no tam anymore, it's gone. So, Amar Adab and Rav. Rabbi Yehuda says that an average shmir is good enough. He was talking about the next layer. In other words, if the animal now is a muad, and caused $300 worth of damage. So it says, as a tam, you would have had to pay 150. As a tam, you needed a much better shmira. An average fence is not good enough. You still have to make the payment of tam. But the extra payment, additional payment of a muad, the extra $100, you don't pay because it had a normal fence. So that makes it a bit more sensible. So like part of the elatzad hadoshaba, you only exempt you to pay the hadah. But the side of the tam you still pay. Okay, Amar Rav, we'll come back. Rav says, muad lekeda, you mean ain't a muad lekeda smile. This animal habitually goes with its right side, and then one day it decides after 4 or 5 times it goes to the left side. As far as the left side is concerned, it's a keda. It's a it's a tam. Because this animal, whatever is the right side, is much wilder or stronger than the left side, and the left side is shy, whatever it is. But if he damaged the left side, it's something the Balbot was totally unaware. It's not his fault, so it's like a tam.
So to prove that he did a shmir for the right side?
It doesn't know. It doesn't matter. The fact is, what kills it.
The right side didn't do anything to stop it anyway.
Yeah, but true. But the point is he didn't damage. So that comes on the philosophy of Pshir. You say I was watching. I'm standing on the right side with animal. I'm standing with him. I'm holding the reins here and the right to make sure I'm in control. So who is Rav following here? If he's following here, Rav Meir. No, what's Rav's chiddush here? We know that if you're a muad we learned before you're muad for Shabbos, you're not a muad for weekdays. We learned all this before, right? That there's a muad, you're limited to whatever you're a muad. What's he trying to tell you here that you didn't know before? So it must be talking about not regarding his chiddush is regarding the shmira, right? What level of shmira? If you had a level of shmira which is good enough for one side and not good enough for the other side, or good enough for one side, another, whatever it is, the laws of shmira kick in. So let's understand which opinion is he following. So it can't be that Rameir holds no difference. Tam and muad, shmira is the same thing. Something like this. Rameir holds echad tam. No, let's say you had a lesser shmir for the left side. Rameir holds whether you're tam, whether you're muad, shmira mu'ula boy, it makes absolutely no difference. If you have an average shmira, you're fully responsible, and if you had a very great shmira, you're fully potter. So what's the point? What's the difference? That must be a Rabbi Yehuda. Must be saying according to Rabbi Yehuda, and Rabbi is saying like this. Let's say you only had a shmir pchusa. You had an average shmir. So if the right side you're a muad, if the animal damaged the right side, you'd be potter because a muad is potter. But if you damage with the left side, you'd be chay because the left side is a tam, and a tam pays full damage. Sorry, tam pays damages if you only had an average shmira. That's the chiddush of Rav. So again, Rav is saying according to Rabbi Yehuda that says that for a muad, an average shmira is good enough. Only a tam requires a shmira mula. So if let's say the right side of the animal was a muad and the left side was a tam, so if he had a shmira pchusa and the animal broke through and damaged with the right side, good enough. I'm not responsible. It's an accident. But if the animal damaged with the left side, if the left side is a tam and you only had an average shmira, you are responsible. Is that what Rav is trying to say? Then Rav could have said a bigger chiddush. Within the right horn itself, remember, Rabbi Barabba just told us that Rabbi Yehuda says that even the right horn, half of it is tam and half of it, the muad is only another layer. So even if he damaged, let's say there was a shmir, an average wool, and the animal broke through and damaged with the right horn, how much would you pay? Only half. The tam part you'd be responsible for because you need a strong fence. You had an average fence. But the muad part, you'd be potter because as far as the muad is concerned, an average fence is good enough. Wouldn't that be a far greater chiddush? Instead of talking about right side and left side, talk about the very same horn that part of it, the shmir is good enough, and for part of that horn, the shmir is not good enough. For the tam part, it's not good enough, and for the muad part, it is good enough. Wouldn't it much greater chiddush? Why introduce the left side? I feel say the right. It's tamus. Be b'tzad muedus. Must be. Rab is trying to say, I totally disagree with the right horn. Once you're muad, he said you're a new animal. You are now a full muad. So if he would have damaged with the right horn, you'd be potter completely. Why? Because he had an average fence, and for a muad, that's good enough. There's no tzat tamus that remains behind. But the left side, that's a different part of the animal, and there you're a tam, you would have to pay full. I want to give you an example where you can have in the same animal, part tam and part muad. I couldn't tell you in the same horn, but I can tell you right horn and left horn. But in muad itself, you don't find tam at all. Let's just finish ready. Abelezer came along. He said, "There's no way you can watch an animal. The only way to watch an animal that will hold you, that will exonerate you, is if you shech the animal. But even you had the best possible shmira and animal damages, it's not an accident. It's your fault. You're responsible. My time what's the sword? It says in pasuk it says in pasuk you didn't watch it. So he teaches shuv ein lo yishmir. It's not that you didn't watch it. It's impossible to be watched. It's impossible to be watched. Abai says, if that's the word, if it says you tell me that not that you can't. It's impossible. So let's talk about bird. It says it says by bird over there that a person digs open a hole in the street and he didn't cover it. According to you, we should read it, and it's impossible to cover it. As if to say that even if you did cover it and then somebody falls in, you're responsible. The law is not so. The law is if you put a lid on it and whatever, somebody else takes it off and somebody falls in, you're not responsible. But according to your reading, the chasana means it's impossible to cover it. How can you learn? Now we should be in the kisa. That's such a if you can say but now we learn kiso karo. If you covered the bird, I dug a hole in the street and then I covered it. The nafal the teiche shere chamay, an animal or donkey falls in, we make butter. So it can't be v'lo means, and it's impossible to guard it properly. What is why you cannot have a pet or a live animal in your house. To the Tanya, like we learned a number of times. How do we know how do you know that you shouldn't have an animal that could pose a danger to others in your house? How do you know that you're responsible for an object that can cause damage to others? You have a ladder in your house that's rickety, you're responsible. It says that you should not have these kind of things in your house. So therefore, he's saying if you have an animal that will not cause damage, obviously it's a kelabra. It's your responsibility. You're over an aveda, and therefore you have to pay. And it comes under the aveda l'sasim dam beisecha. It's interesting. According to Bezman Yaakov, there's an iser. If your animal causes damage, there's an iser. And the Isa is not what I said to you before, which is, Abbas Yisrael or Gzela. The Isa is Sosim Damim Lebesecha. So even if we don't go to the extreme of Rabbi Lezer says there's no way of watching it, but when you didn't watch it properly, it comes under that thing. So that's another way of looking at the Isa. Okay.
Never have an animal to
You shouldn't. You shouldn't. Or you could, but you're responsible. Okay, we'll see you tomorrow, Mitzvah Hashem.